This is a Sandy Boy Productions podcast.
Welcome to Finish Lines and Milestones, a podcast that celebrates the everyday runner. I'm your host, Allie Bretnacher. If you run, you are a runner, and every runner has a story. Join me each week as I share these stories, and we cross finish lines and celebrate milestones together. You guys, I'm so excited that my favorite running fuel is now a sponsor of this podcast. Pure Fuel, which is made by Anderson's Pure Maple Syrup, is just that. It is pure, organic maple syrup. And you might be thinking that that's weird. Fair enough. But I discovered it when I was in North Dakota running the Fargo Half Marathon. Opted to pick up a few packets to try. And I was so pleasantly surprised at how refreshing maple syrup can be. It's a little bit more liquidy than your typical energy gel, and it's easy on the stomach. They say waffles to workouts. So it's literally something that not only can you use during a workout, but you can also put on your waffles, pancakes, oatmeal, coffee, whatever. And the Anderson's brand is sold in grocery stores all across the US. So you'll see them in the syrup aisle. But I'm so pleased to be working with them. Also, stay tuned for their creator, Christine Anderson herself, is going to be an upcoming guest on the Finish Lines and Milestones podcast. So stay tuned for that in a couple weeks. And if you want to give them a try, which you absolutely should, go to andersonsmaplesyrup.com, click on shop up at the top and go to Pure Fuel. And you can use code FUEL20 in order to get 20% off. And they have 10 packs or 24 packs. The 24 packs are also sold on Amazon. So super easy to find there as well. And one more added bonus is that this family-founded business has been around for almost 100 years. And when you support them, you're also supporting the preservation of acres of hardwood forests across the Midwest. What an added bonus. So thank you, Pure Fuel, for supporting this podcast. Hello and welcome to episode 96. This is Allie Bretnacher. Perhaps as you're listening to this, I'm en route to Las Vegas, where I'll be running the Rock and Roll Las Vegas Half Marathon. I'm going there with my dad. He's been doing this for a handful of years with his cousin and his cousin's kids. And I started tagging along, and this will be my third year doing it. It's so much fun. They shut down the strip at night, and there's really nothing like it. And my dad loves Vegas. He specifically loves playing craps. And so we will be at the craps table quite a bit. We will also be going to see the Eagles at the Spear, which I am maybe even more excited about. I don't know. But I'm really excited to get my first race of 2025 under my belt. So stay tuned. I'll be sure to tell you all about it. I'm excited to be going to a shakeout run too on Saturday with Nicole Lynn, who is the founder of Below Average Running. And she's hilarious on Instagram if you don't already know her. So I'm excited to finally meet her in real life and hopefully meet a bunch of other new running friends. So I'm also pumped to bring you this week's guest. And pumped is a pun because this week's guest, Curtis Hargrove, ran the Chicago Marathon in pumps, in heels, to raise money for a domestic violence shelter. And if you haven't seen this already, go follow him on Instagram. He's C Hargrove, HARGROVE 15. And there's some videos there of not only him doing this crazy thing like running in heels, but also his day job, which is wild, working on servicing oil rigs, which I know nothing about. And you'll hear me ask Curtis about during this episode. But I'm really excited to tell you not just about the marathon and his day job, but all the other incredible things that he's done over the course of his running journey, primarily to inspire and help people. So he's raised a ton of money for charity, and he's currently getting ready to tackle 5 of the 7 world majors this year. And he'll kick off his running season by running 3 marathons in 3 countries in 13 days. So Curtis is just incredible, and I know you're going to like him. So please enjoy this conversation with Curtis Hargrove. Curtis, how's it going?
Good, Allie. How are you?
I am good. I'm super excited to have you on.
Thank you for reaching out to me and wanting to share my story. I truly appreciate it.
Totally. So people may already know you, first of all, from Instagram, but if they don't, they'll soon realize you're Canadian, given a hint of accent. I was having to Google where Cold Lake was this morning before I jumped on because I did not know. So Alberta, which is actually somewhere in Canada, I've been to Lake Louise in Banff.
Oh, it's a beautiful
long
place.
time ago. It's probably one of my favorite places on the planet. For anybody who has no idea where Cold Lake is or anything about Alberta, Canada, could you kind of paint a picture of where you're from?
So I'm from Cold Lake, Alberta. It's northeastern. It's a northeastern city. We have one of the largest air bases in Canada. We're a military community. It's very cold here right now. I can do the calculations for you because I don't. It is minus. It feels like minus 45 Celsius out here right now. So minus 45 C equals minus 49 Fahrenheit right now.
Get out of here. Oh,
Yeah,
so
that's what it
that's
that's what it feels like right now. So yeah, there's no running outside to be had. Actually, school buses and stuff are canceled today. I
I
mean,
would hope
yeah.
so. That is insane. Wow. That's really cold. I was expecting, I don't know, the calculation I'm glad you did because I don't know how to do that in my head, but I was expecting it not to be that much. God, almost 50 to negative 50. Anyway,
Yeah.
I guess when you have cold in the name of the city where you live, it makes sense. But that is way worse than even I'm in Indiana and it's just above freezing today. Yesterday it was almost 70 degrees, which I don't know what that is in Celsius, but it was really warm, like almost nearing on like summer temperatures. And then now it's going to like ice and snow tomorrow. So good
Lucky. Yeah,
times.
I would love to be running in that kind of weather.
Yeah, right.
I've been running on tracks and treadmills and I've been going insane.
I bet. I bet. So, okay. So you're Canadian. You live in Cold Lake. Is that where you're from originally? Have you been there most of your life?
I've been here most of my life. I was actually born in Lahr, Germany. My dad used to be in the military, so he was stationed
Oh,
in Germany. So I came to Canada when I was a couple months old. Yeah, so Cold Lake's been
wow.
my home for my entire life.
And then your job is absolutely nuts. Like people are going to, I don't know, my mind is just blown every time I learn something new about you, Curtis. But your day job is also really interesting. So are there oil rigs out in Cold Lake? Could you
Yeah,
tell us
they're all
about
over
that?
Alberta, and they're all over Canada. I mean, you see them too in the U.S. and Texas and Montana and all those places too. But yeah, so I'm a derrickhand on a service rig for tree line well servicing. And so yeah, you saw the video. So just an example for the other day. So I talked about how we were pulling out of the hole with a ESP pump and tubing. So basically, what happened is a pump went down, and we had to pull that pump and run a new one to get it producing oil again. So yeah, as you could see, it was terrible. I was up stick there. I think it was minus 35, close to minus 40. It felt like, especially up
Oh,
there, it's a lot colder. Working 12 to 14-hour days sometimes. I was on a 24-hour crew, so I was working 12 and a halves. And then, after work, I go in to camp, eat breakfast, and I go get my miles in because if I go to sleep, I won't get as much sleep because I'll have to wake up earlier to get those miles in. So, yeah, there's a lot of discipline involved, working in this industry and trying to get my mileage in.
yeah, I bet. So when you work on a rig, it doesn't have to be in the water. I just picture that. Like the only ones I've really seen are like out in the Gulf. So
Yeah.
yours are just like on land or are they like in the lake?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
feel so
I'm on land.
ignorant.
So no,
Okay.
that's okay. So yeah, because there's drilling rigs and service rigs. So I'm on the service side of
Okay.
things. So the drilling rigs, they'll drill the wells, and service rigs will go in and service. So if there's
Okay.
any issues, so like if any of the tubing has holes in it, or there's problems down hole, we can go in and we can figure out what's going on. And yeah, so
Wow. And you mentioned before we started recording that you're going on nights. So sometimes you work at night, but not always.
yeah, I'll work day shift, night shift, kind of. It's whatever, wherever we're at. Like I was in camp there for 21 days, and then I just had 3 days off, and now I'm going back to nights. But I'll be at home every night now. And then
Wow.
yeah, it just depends, where we're at, because right now, obviously, it's a new year, a lot of new budgets, a lot of companies are trying to get things done. So we got a lot of 24-hour jobs going ahead, and then you know depending, like I'm on a crew that lives with me too, so because the other guys, some of them are from out of town,
Wow.
so they're staying in hotels, so it's easier that we all work and travel together.
Yeah. Wow. That's so wild. Well, I think it prepares you pretty well for endurance given like the shifts you work.
Yeah, I mean, it's been been a long time since I've, got into a lot of these projects and stuff again. So definitely working, and doing these 12-hour days helps a lot. I mean, I get in probably 35,000 steps a day. By the time I get back to camp, or, if I'm living in camp, sometimes your room is, almost a mile away from like the fitness area, or half a mile to the kitchen for supper, and then so you think you walk back, like it's a lot of mileage in a day, just working in a 12-hour day. But and then I mentioned to a lot of people, they ask, how do you get your strength training and stuff in? And I honestly don't even do any strength training, to be honest. I do a lot at work. I feel like I work a lot of muscles at work, and you know when I'm off, I'll go to the gym. But at work, I don't have enough time in a day to be able to let my body fully rest and get my running mileage in. So that's the one thing I kind of skip out on is the gym side of things.
Yeah. Jeez. So is this something, clearly it's an industry that's prevalent where you live, but was this in your family? Like how did you end up at this job?
No, I just, I started out, actually, I was swamping on a picker truck, and then my cousin works on the rigs. So I got on the rigs with my cousin, and then it's just something I've done. And then, throughout my injuries, obviously I've separated both my shoulders, one at work, one at rugby. And,
Oh,
and then with the tearing my Achilles and stuff. So I've been in and out of the oil field industry. I've been in the oil field industry since I was 18 years old. So for the last 17
wow.
years.
Wow. That's wild. Yeah, I know nobody. You said something about, like, what did you just say? Something on a truck?
A
What
picker,
was the first
picker truck. So it's like a crane.
picker truck?
You would call it a crane.
Crane. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know anything. You're like speaking Spanish to me. It's so wild. So, for people who might, again, know you from Instagram, I feel like recently, like you said, you've been doing a lot more podcasts and things like that because the Chicago Marathon last year opened a lot of doors for you. You got a lot of visibility, which is amazing given what you're fundraising for. But you ran the Chicago Marathon wearing red high heels, which is just nuts. So there's so much more to your story leading up to that. But I feel like people most recently might have seen that and been like, oh, yeah, I totally saw that guy. So tell us about Chicago last year. Was that your first time doing Chicago ever? High heels
That
or not?
was that was my first time doing Chicago, and that was actually my first world major ever.
Okay.
Like I've done a lot of, as you've seen, I've done a lot of charity marathon running, but I've been so busy doing all these other projects that I never really had time to go to these world majors and stuff. And then when I was, able to do these things, I was injured. So I've had a lot going on. But yeah, so leading up to Chicago, I was working with Stepping Stones Crisis Society in Cold Lake. I made a promise prior to COVID that I would attempt a Guinness World Record for fastest marathon in high heels by a male to support women and children who suffer from domestic violence. And obviously, COVID happened. Marathons went virtual, and I didn't want to do it virtually. I wanted people to experience it firsthand.
Right.
Now, I attempted to run the Edmonton Marathon in high heels. I snapped a high heel 6 kilometers in, and I walked another 5 kilometers to like in the heels to the turnaround to head back for the half marathon. And then I had to basically DNF myself. I took the heels off. I ran barefoot for the last 10 kilometers just so that I could get a half marathon medal. And
Oh
so
my God.
that was actually the second DNF I've ever had in my life. The first one, obviously, we'll talk about that
Wow.
later.
Only two. That's
Was a
pretty
little bit
surprising, actually.
complications. And then again, I you know what? So I was like, you know what? I'm not giving up. My boss actually called me. He's like, we'll give you time if you want to try it again. So I went back to work for 2 weeks, and then I registered with the Queen City Marathon in Regina, where I managed to get 21 kilometers in this time in the heels, and my heels were breaking on me again, and it was really hot, and I couldn't continue. I wasn't going to make it in time for cutoff. I just had to be realistic. So I DNF'd myself there, and so like I said, like my whole life I never had, I would push through things, and I couldn't this time, and my feet were so blistered and beat up. I couldn't, along with the broken heels. And then, you know what? I was like, I'm not a quitter. I reached out to the Chicago Marathon and I said, listen, this is what I've been doing the last couple months. I said, is there any way that I can do this? If you want me to change, corrals, I'll change corrals just to do this. And they messaged me back. They said, don't worry about it. Stay where you're at. Bring your heels. Give us all the information. If you break the record, we'll fill it out for you. And so the rest was history. So I flew out to Chicago, and it was such an amazing experience. I mean, running with 50,000 other runners, 50,000 plus
Yeah.
runners, 1.7 million spectators.
It's amazing.
It's hard to beat. Like, I mean, I've got a busy year this year, but just as a first experience in a world major, I don't know how to top that right now, and I guess I'll find out this year.
Yeah. Yeah, Chicago is the marathon that I've run the most. So I'm Indianapolis area where I'm from is about 3 hours drive from Chicago.
Yeah.
So pretty close to Chicago. I've done Chicago 4 times, although the most recent time it's been over 10 years ago, which is sad. I need to do it again. But to your point, yeah, spectators, like sheer number of runners, all amazing. I want to back up really quickly to the promise you made to run in heels to break the record to begin with. Like, how did you find out about the record that existed? And then like, what made you be like, yeah, I'm going to do that.
So funny thing is the record never existed. I was gonna be the one to
You
create the
were.
record. I was gonna be the one to
Okay.
create the record. Yeah. So after COVID, like literally last year, before I ran the Chicago Marathon, I got a rejection letter from Guinness, even though I'd already submitted an application, and it was because somebody had done the made the record. So it was a guy from the UK. He said he wanted to try something fun. I was like, I wouldn't call it fun, but it's definitely
Yeah.
challenging. But like I said, it's all for a wonderful cause. And but yeah, so he set the record at 5 hours and 13 minutes. And I was like, well, I made this commitment. I made this promise. I'm going to honor that promise because I never back down on something that I promise I'm going to do. So my intent was now to beat this world record. And I started out really strong. Like my first 5 kilometers, I ran in 27 minutes. I was flying. And
Yeah,
I mention this a lot. I'm sure, do you know who Rob Dalto is?
I don't
He's an
actually.
influencer. Well, he actually interviewed me prior to the race, and he always gives out tips and tricks for all marathons. He actually ran all 7 world marathon majors last year.
Oh
And
gosh,
one of
yeah.
his videos, he mentions your like GPS and stuff to change to multi satellites just due to all the big buildings and everything else. You're not gonna know your pace or anything. And I was flying, I went way too fast. And then even at 10K, I was at like an hour and 5 minutes or something. So like
Yeah,
I
it's
was on
wild.
pace to crush the record by about an hour and 15 minutes if all went well. And then, I got to about 25 kilometers. So actually at half marathon, I was still a minute ahead of world record pace. But my feet were fully blistered on the bottom. Like I had full bud blisters all across the bottom.
Yeah.
I had to stop in at the medic station. And I think the worst part was ripping off the K tape off of my already blistered feet.
Nope. Can't imagine.
and then I asked them, I said, listen, can you please retape my feet? And the thing is at this point, sitting down, my legs got super stiff. My muscles were tight, and I didn't know, I honestly thought I wasn't going to be able to continue. And I asked for salt, whatever. They gave me salt, mustard, anything to just kind of whatever they had there to help me out. And as I was sitting there and getting my feet taped, and I stood up and I'm like, oh my God, I don't think I can do this. And I was like, no, you're going to do this, Curtis. You flew all the way from Canada to Chicago to support these women and children who suffer from domestic violence. You got to think about what these women go through every day. My pain is nothing compared to what they go through every day. It's your first world major. You're not getting a DNF here. who cares if the record's not in sight? It's not about the record. The record was about getting exposure for the charity, and we
Mhm.
got that exposure. And I appreciate that to Drew Menz as well. So Drew Menz is on TikTok. She was a girl who took a TikTok video saying, "Who is this man?" It was a video of me going through an aid station, walking in my heels, and the internet did their thing, and they exploded the story. So that's another good thing about the running community is there's so many amazing
Yeah.
people out there. People don't know, don't really realize we're part of such a special group of people,
Hmm.
and the spectators in themselves as well. Um, you know, lifting me up and helping me continue on. And then, as I pushed through, like I think just after the aid station, there was a couple ladies, they had some powdered mini donuts. They were feeding me mini
Oh,
donuts.
yes.
Yeah, they were giving me mini donuts and I was drinking wine. And then, I think next I made
Why?
it to, I think it was kilometer 30, Mama B. I'm still trying to find Mama B. So if anybody out there can help me find Mama B, her and her family saw me. They're sitting on the corner. She asked me if she could say a prayer for me, and that's something that actually was really inspiring to me. Her and her family gathered around me. They said a prayer and prayed for me to be okay because I was struggling. I was so close to the biofreeze zone, and I just needed to get to the biofreeze zone, and
Yeah.
to get my legs sprayed and everything to help me out. And then just after that, I got to a station, shotgun a couple beer with people because I'm like, okay, I need some pick me ups.
Yeah.
I need
Yeah.
anything to help me get through the line. And then right near the finish, I did those fireball shots. And then,
Curtis.
yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just being honest with you. I mean,
No, I'm
I
just
I
trying.
was using
Yeah.
everything on the course to help me get through there. And then, of course, I love the signs that people have, the Super Mario power ups,
Hmm.
and just the energy. And then it was kind of cool because as I got to mile 25, that's when the storm was kind of starting to come in, and I had a tailwind, and it was so strong it literally blew the hat off my head, and
Oh.
I caught it midair and put it back on my head, and it gave me that little final push before you come around the corner to go up that last little hill towards the finish line.
Hmm.
And I tell you, it was such an amazing experience, Ali. And I'm so thankful, to the city of Chicago for all their support, all the people for their support, the running community, everybody doing their part and helping share my story.
Yeah. Geez. Okay. So you mentioned, okay, so 30 kilometers in. So that's
Yeah.
like 18 miles ish,
Oh,
like
yeah.
a
Sorry.
little bit more. No, I'm just for people, most people who listen probably are like, oh, dang it. I don't know kilometers either. So Mama B, is that what you said? So how
Mama
did you
B.
know? Okay. And so that's around mile 18. So if anybody else encountered this woman, so how did you know her name? Like, you were
She
just
talked to me,
struggling
but
and
yeah, and she saw I was leaning against a stop sign post or whatever, a
okay.
post, and they were there and they saw the heels, and of course, everybody's shocked. They turn and they
Yeah.
look at you and what's going on, and I told them what I was doing, and we got the photo on her phone. I didn't get information, so yeah, I wanted to
Ah,
do something for her and her family if somebody can find them.
find her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
find her. But yeah, it was such a cool experience. And then like I said, just the people along the way. Yeah, I don't even
Yeah.
I can't even describe it. It's so surreal. The moment
Yeah.
was surreal.
Ah, I bet. Well, I can picture the whole like shotgunning beers and
Yeah.
Fireball. I remember, I don't know if it was my most recent Chicago or not, but I remember like right before you were about to make that turn up the hill towards the finish line, like there were people handing out PBRs, like full on like beer,
Oh yeah.
and I just remember grabbing one and just like holding it up and like just letting it pour like all down my face. I don't know how much of it I actually drank, but I just remember like, yeah, it was the most amazing PBR I've ever had in my life. So I imagine you were in so much pain at that point too. Like anything to kind of distract you from the pain or like numb the pain a little bit was probably very welcome. Gosh.
Yeah, well, and it's funny that you mentioned that because just before that, so I actually had medical staff following me. There was these two gentlemen, they were carrying my Gatorade and
Oh,
stuff for me so that I could just continue. And then my right leg just all of a sudden straightened out, and I was cramped so hard. I'm like, you can't be doing this to me at mile 25 legs. Why are you doing this? I'm almost there. I'm like, please don't do this to me. And then yeah, I just I pushed her through, and I'm actually very
God.
thankful too that the Chicago Marathon, the organizers didn't make me change Corels, because if I would have had to change Corels that day, I
Yeah,
wouldn't have
that
I wouldn't have made it. I would have DNF'd. So it's another thing that
yeah.
I'm very thankful for, because I was in wave B, which is where a lot of, the people that are
Yeah.
right next to elite runners are. And
Fast.
everybody's like, yeah, they're fast. And everybody's like, what are you doing in here? I'm like, oh, I asked them to change. They said they didn't want to change me. So I got very
So here I
lucky in that
am.
sense too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, clearly it needed to happen that way. So that's pretty cool. Okay, back to the promise again, like the reason you did this for domestic violence in particular. Was it somebody in your life who'd experienced that firsthand? How did that cause?
Yeah, so there's been a couple people in my life. So my sister was abused by a babysitter growing up, someone that was
Oh,
close to the
geez, I'm
family,
sorry.
and then my aunt, she was actually out on a run, and some guy tried to rape her on the trail. She screamed for help. She managed to get away, and like I think people in the area came to help her. My other aunt was in an abusive relationship. Her husband was an alcoholic. So I mean, there's a lot of people affected, and that's why, like,
Right.
when some people, they hear about the things you're doing, they think that I'm just doing it to do it, but a lot of them do have a meaning. There's a lot of connection to these charities that I have. Obviously, when we discuss later on how I got into it, I mean,
Yeah.
it was crazy how it happened, but yeah. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of people I know that have been affected. Even
Yeah.
friends and family that I know in my community, and it was crazy too. Like, you hear stories. I've had women message me. I had, after the Chicago Marathon, my Instagram and Facebook and everything was blowing up, and I couldn't keep up with people. I couldn't keep up with the messages. Some people were sharing their stories in the comments. Others were sending me personal messages. I've had women show me pictures of them being abused from 8 to 10 years ago, and then sharing photos of them and their daughter now fully healed, away from that. And just the stories of what these people have gone through, and it really opens your eyes. I mean, it happens a lot, but when you hear these stories firsthand, and you hear from these women firsthand, it's like, this is why I'm doing this. And of course, you saw it online. There's a lot of haters. There's always going to be a lot of haters. It blows my mind, really. You can do so much good, and people always have to find the negative in things. But
Always.
like I say, there's always, there might be one bad apple, but there's always 100 people fighting back.
Yes.
And so I like to not engage in those activities. I just let the people fight those battles. And I think too is, like, sometimes when stories come out, they don't get the full story, or headlines are deceiving. They don't tell the
Yeah.
story. They just say man runs in high heels, but they don't say what it's for. So then
Right.
people are just assuming I'm just doing it to do it, right? They don't understand that I'm
Yeah.
doing it for a wonderful cause to help a lot of
Yeah.
people. So
I always like to say that when you start getting the trolls, that's when you're doing something right, because you're finally in front of enough people to where you encounter those people who just have to be trolls. I don't know. It's wild to me, but clearly you're doing something right and getting the right amount of visibility once you encounter those people. For this particular charity, how much money did you raise in Chicago for
we
Chicago?
raised about $10,000 for
So
this
amazing.
charity, so it was pretty good. It was
Really
pretty good.
cool.
I had a little bit higher expectations, but like I said, it was amazing. And the thing is too is, like, I get it. It's a little bit harder. I'm from Canada. I'm fundraising for a foundation in Canada, so sometimes people are a little less to want to donate, because it's not in their community, and I get that. But there was
Sure.
so much support. Like, there was so much
Mhm.
support. Like, I was getting donations from Chicago. I was getting messages from people in Australia, from
Mm.
Tokyo, from all over, people donating.
Yeah.
So it was incredible to see the support that I got around the world. And we have exciting news. I don't know if you want me to share it,
Well,
or
yeah. Are you going to talk
yeah,
about sneaks?
yeah. Well, and I want to show you, because I did bring
Okay.
these out of the cage. So this is the
Yes.
high heel that I wore. So this is
How is
welded.
that
So I
still
had to
in one piece? That
I
is
had to weld. I had
mind-blowing.
to get it welded so that it wouldn't break on me. So if you see the bottom, I was a lot of damage on the bottom there,
Yeah.
and then it's
I mean,
kind of
I'm surprised there's
they're
not
kind of
holes
gross.
in the bottom. They aren't as
So
well, I guess I can't tell as much, but yeah, okay. So,
we'll talk about my other project later, but this is the OG high heel. This is where my walking high heels first started. This is the OG high heel. I walked 185 miles in 10 days in 4-inch high heels. They were 4-inch. They're now 2-inch. I had to
Oh my
hockey tape
gosh.
them. Had to hockey tape them just to make them less, you know, hurt my feet less.
Yeah.
You can still kind of see on the sides. I know it's kind of gross, but that like blood from
I mean,
wearing
right.
the heels. This is what the heel looked like. So yeah, you're talking about holes. These are the holes I got on the bottom of my
Okay.
feet, the hole on the
Yeah.
toe. Like, so yeah, that's just a
Jeez.
little look at
That's
that stuff.
well, and you mentioned, I mean, that you walked 185 miles, which is 300 kilometers in heels. Because I'm sure people are wondering, like, did you actually train to run a marathon in high heels? Like, what did that look like? And so that was what you
Mhm.
did that in 2013 was when you did the walk in
Yeah.
heels. So leading up to last year's Chicago, did you put them on for any sort of runs or walks, or you just straight
I
up
did
just,
one time with my nieces and nephew just for fun. I tried to see. I was like, running a mile in high heels, and like just a mile, I got a crazy blister on my
oh,
big toe, and
yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, this is awesome. This is gonna be great.
Yeah,
um,
this is
this is
can't.
yeah,
Yeah, and for anybody who wants to see, you did share the aftermath of your feet on Instagram, and it was really gnarly.
yeah.
I
So
mean,
I've shared some photos of the blisters and stuff, and then I just did a recent video. I got my first victim. I lost a toenail. And actually,
oh,
since then, I've lost two more toenails on the other foot. So, yeah, the damage is still there. I do like my feet. I do have some, I think, permanent scarring from the blisters that I received because I
yeah.
got multiple blisters. And I mean, it is what it is. But again, like I said, I mean, what I went through is nothing compared to what women and children go through every day. There's some people that are fighting for their lives every day, and then
Yeah.
there's some people who will never heal from that trauma.
Mhm.
I'm going to heal. And it's funny the comments you see from people is like, oh, this guy's going through uh, foot treatment. Like he's never going to be able to run again. It's like I literally flew home and I went to work the next day. I put my steel
Oh,
toes on. I went to work. I put my hockey skates on. I was playing hockey. But yeah, it's crazy the stories that'll come from the internet. people
yeah.
people are crazy. But
People,
yeah,
I
so
tell you.
like I said, it for me, I never did any training. I've just always used what I've had. I mean, I got a lot of marathons under my belt. I'm pretty good mentally, like when it comes to the run game. I know what it takes to complete a marathon, and I use that in pretty much everything that I've done in order
Mhm.
to complete this marathon.
Yeah. So, Curtis, did I cut you off when you were going to share some exciting news because I got excited?
Oh no, that's okay. I was gonna share the heels and
Yeah.
stuff, but so yeah, I reached out to Guinness and I asked them if sneaks were acceptable because I got asked if I would ever try to do the record again. And
Yeah.
I created a TikTok and I said, listen, the only way I will do this again is if I have a pair of these, and they're sneaks.
Yeah.
They're
Uh-huh.
a luxury hybrid high heel created by Sarah Blakely. She's also the founder of Spanx. Um, and she replied to my video asking me, "What's your size?"
Yep.
So,
Oh,
you know,
so good.
and the crazy thing is like through all this time as I was doing this run in these stilettos, she was in the midst of launching this product,
Right.
and I'm like, "Where was this like a couple months ago?" I'm like, "Oh, I needed this."
Right.
You look at the sneaks and you see like they're running shoe high heels. They're
Yeah.
amazing looking, and like you see like women all over are wearing these things, and even this with fashion, like it's amazing, and her company's exploded all over, and I thought it was pretty cool. These sneaks, they take 4 hours to make. They're made in Italy. You saw the pictures obviously from the video
Yeah.
that it's literally a running shoe with a heel on it,
Yeah.
and they
I,
still meet the requirements. They're still over the 2.75 inches, and at the tip of the heel, they're still under the 1.5 centimeters. So everything meets the requirements. And so after the Chicago Marathon ended, I got Run Domestic Violence, Run DV Out of Town picked me up as part of their team. So I'm going to be running for Run DV Out of Town, an organization out of Illinois. They look after, I believe, 92 counties, and we're going to go for the record again. But I'm going to be wearing sneaks this time. So
Hell
I will
yes.
be back in Chicago, back in the high heels, doing this for the women and children of Chicago area.
That's so cool. Does she have a red version? Is there a red pair of sneaks?
There is, yeah.
Okay.
I've looked at a couple different, I mean, it would be ideal to have a red pair, obviously.
Right.
But
Yeah. So that people can, I mean, certainly, I don't know. I just picture like when I'm running a marathon, I'm like kind of in my own world, right? Like, so having them be that red color was smart just to get, again, the visibility on what you're doing and why you're doing it. I cannot wait to cheer you on for that. That's so cool. You can't
awesome.
tell, but I'm wearing a sweatsuit. This is Spanx. I'm obsessed with Sarah Blakely in general. And then you and I, Curtis, have a shared love of the big ass calendar that her husband,
Yes.
Jesse, made. So anyway, just two incredible human beings, very, just very talented, very inspiring. And I love that she made that shoe for women. They are not cheap. Like you mentioned, they are made
Oh,
in
yeah.
Italy, and they're like, yeah, I can imagine 4 hours to make them. No wonder they're so pricey. They're like $400, I think.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'll ever have a pair, but that's because I live in running shoes and athleisure these days. So, okay, Curtis, so cool that you're going to go back and do that in Chicago. So you mentioned kind of flippantly, like, oh yeah, I have quite a few marathons under my belt, but there's like, I can't even wrap my head around the fact that you've run over 300 marathons, right? 300.
Yes. So I have 310 marathons under my belt right now.
Right. Yeah. Jesus. Okay. So, and your first marathon was when you were 15. So like 20 years ago?
Yeah, 20 years ago. So I was, I was always into running when I was younger. I ran on, the track and field cross country running teams. I competed with the Northeastern Alberta track team in St. Paul. My uncle had this idea. He's like, do you want to run the Edmonton Marathon with me? So the Edmonton Marathon, it happened to be the Centennial Marathon, where Edmonton was celebrating being a city for 100 years. So it was pretty special.
That's cool.
So I ran with my uncle, and he kind of kept the pace for me. And then, he's like, you can go, you can unleash, like, get out there, start running. And I was with this pacer who was like, you can break the 4 hour if you keep going. And so I ended up running the Edmonton Marathon in a time of 3:57:42 at 15 years old, winning the 19 and under category. And that's where, my love for marathon running grew. I'd always been into running, but, my passion for the marathon started there.
And so Edmonton, how big is that race? Like how many approximately?
Oof. Well, back then it was probably a couple thousand. I think now last year they had their biggest entry. I think it was over 9,000 last year.
Okay.
So
yeah,
it's pretty big.
That's really cool. So I start to try to figure out how in the heck you fit 310 marathons into 20 years. And so there's been times where you've done like 34 marathons in 34 days. You've done 58 marathons in 49 days. So like, I know we don't have time to cover all of these experiences that you have had, but can you just kind of, I guess, talk us through this journey you had, like starting when you were 15, kind of clearly
I'll give
falling
you
in
the
love
short
with
story.
it. Yeah.
So I like I said, I competed nationally and internationally with that track team I was with. I went to Idaho for the Simplot Games. It was the world's largest indoor track meet. So I did stuff like that. And then,
Wow.
I was a district and zone champion multiple times for my cross country and track and field. And then when I graduated, when I turned 18, my grandfather was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And my grandfather, he's my biggest hero. Unfortunately, he passed away just over a year ago, almost 2. And he did a lot of fundraising for different charities. He ran for the blind. He ran for the Terry Fox Foundation. So the Terry Fox Foundation, for those of you that don't know, Terry Fox is our Canadian hero. Terry Fox attempted to run across Canada. He lost his leg to cancer. So he was running across Canada on one leg and a prosthetic leg. And unfortunately, cancer stopped him when he hit Thunder Bay. And he couldn't continue, but it's his legacy has continued for many years, and that's what the schools and the kids and people all across Canada continue to fundraise for Terry Fox. So I thought I would fundraise for my grandfather and Terry Fox, two of my greatest heroes. So on August 12, 2007, I set out on a journey to run 34 marathons in 34 days across all of Alberta and British Columbia. Ended up doing that and raised $50,000 for the Terry Fox Foundation.
Wow.
And then, so after that, I went off to Red Deer College. I took a year off of school. I went to Red Deer College on running soccer scholarship and kind of got into the party scene. I lost my way. So second year, I didn't really care too much. I was just drinking, partying. And one night I was walking home from the bar in like minus 35 weather, like we were talking about, in t-shirt and jeans. And, I was kind of looking for a sign. I was like, God, please just help me get back to who I used to be, the person I used to be. I said, I'm not who I am. I'm lost. And I shit you not, I got home, and that next morning I got my sign. I got a call from Jeff Murray. He was a host at the local radio station, K Rock. He got a phone call from a girl, Delaney Saunders. She was diagnosed with a rare type of tumor in her foot. She had cancer, and she had reached out asking if I would be able to help her raise money. And so I just had I left college. I went home. I was working in the oil field, and I made a surprise trip to the Stollery Children's Hospital where I announced that I was going to run across Canada. So yeah, in 2012, I set out on a journey running across Canada, raised $250,000 for the Stollery Children's Hospital. And so this kind of ties into the high heels. So the lady I worked with at the Stollery Children's Hospital, Stephanie Pirelli, she was the community initiatives manager. She ended up getting a position with the YWCA, which is also a charity that helps women and children who suffer from domestic violence. So when me and Morgan and the girls were on our way home, we ended up stopping in Edmonton to celebrate. Now, of course, me, I was, a couple rum deep. Like I'm tired. I've ran a couple hundred marathons, across the country. I'm tired. And she's like, so, and I was like, oh no, she's going to throw me a pitch here. She's like, have you ever heard of the Walk a Mile? And I was like, yeah, of course I have. I was like, tell me a little bit more though. And she says, do you think you want to do the Walk a Mile? And I said, I could walk a mile. I said, I bet you I could walk from Cold Lake to Edmonton in high heels. And she says, done. And I'm like, oh, she called my bluff.
Yeah.
I kid you not, the next day, Stephanie had a banner made ready for the RV. And I went home with my high heels that they gave me. And literally 2 weeks after finishing the run across Canada, I walked 300 kilometers, so 185 miles in 10 days in 4-inch high heels. And I raised about $15,000 for the YWCA. And yeah, so those are how all those things kind of tied together.
Jeez. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, okay. So when you did the 34 marathons in 34 days, where did you do those? Was it just like around your
No,
in
it
Cold
was
Lake?
right across province to province. So like I went across all of Alberta. So I ran across Alberta. I ran through the mountains. Like I
Okay.
basically Forrest Gumped it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you ran across. And so, okay, Alberta, British Columbia is on the farthest to the west?
Yes. So
Okay,
yeah.
that's what I thought. So you took off and you went west. 34 marathons, 34 days. Jeez.
Correct.
Okay. And in an RV. So you slept in an RV when you were doing that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had a RV for that, and and then like hotels or different places, restaurants would donate meals or stays. Campgrounds would give us either donations, like a free stay, or they would really give us a good deal. It's just incredible the amount of support we got from people.
Well, it's incredible, especially because of the year. 2007, Facebook was like probably still for college kids at that point. Yeah. Because I remember my freshman year of college was 2004. So that was when Facebook, was launched. So yeah, 2007, the fact that you can get something like that done and get the support that you did, I guess without, what we have now is pretty incredible. And then gosh, across Canada, the whole thing. How many miles is that?
It's about 7,000 kilometers.
7,000.
Over 7,000 kilometers.
Okay.
3,000 miles. Yeah.
And so at what point, so you already mentioned, you talked about a little bit about your partying, right? Like getting into college, falling into like the party scene. I feel like that does happen to a lot of kids. So what year would that have been in this timeline? Like I'm trying to piece together.
So college was 2010, 11. 2010 and 11. Yeah.
Okay. So like between the time that you ran across the provinces in the 34 days and then when you took off to do this entire run across Canada, you also shared in another podcast that you had this like near death experience where you had kind of fallen into this party world and it got to a point where it almost killed you. Could you share that story?
Yeah, so that happened. So that was just prior to COVID, so 2018, 19.
Okay, so that was
Um,
8. Okay.
yeah. So I'll
Jeez.
just after this. So basically, what happened? I'll just briefly break this down. So 2015, I ran across I did 58 marathons in 49 days across Washington, Oregon, and California for a girl with Down syndrome and autism. And
Jesus.
then I came home, and then I didn't really do any projects. 2018, I tore my right Achilles. I suffered a right Achilles tendon rupture, and that's kind of when my life started to go downhill.
Mm.
Between that, I suffered multiple concussions in rugby. I talked about my shoulder injuries too. So I suffered a grade 3 AC separation in both my shoulders. So I literally couldn't
Jeez.
do any physical activities. I couldn't run. The guy I was living with, I started to do drugs. So I was doing cocaine, and I would just, do it here or there. And it's something I never done in my life. I drank,
Mm.
maybe smoked like weed a couple times. There wasn't really anything I really was like, I honestly was a good kid. I was focused on my running. I was focused on my sports. I didn't get into any of those things. And, in my community, there's a lot of drugs that was around when I was growing up and, still. And so at this point I was, so I was still working in the oil field. So what happened is it was right before Christmas too.
Mm.
So December 22nd, I went to work. I worked a 12-hour day, 13-hour day, came home. I was partying with a buddy, drinking, doing a bunch of cocaine, stayed up all night, went to work, did it again, came home, drank, did some more cocaine, went to work. So I was up for like 60 hours.
Jeez.
And I ended up going to work, and it was, December 23rd, just before Christmas. I dropped to my knees, and my heart was just beating outside my coveralls. And I had to go tell my boss, and he didn't know because, he's known me for a long time. He didn't know that I did that stuff. And like everybody was panicking, and they called the medics. I got rushed off a site, and then at the gate, the Bonnyville ambulance picked me up, and I was at a point my blood pressure was 240 over 220. I was in heart attack stroke range,
Mm.
and I was in the hospital. They gave me the help button. They gave me a little button, and I just remember trying to get out of help. I was like, help, help. And this lady, I just remember a lady screaming. I seen the monitors. It was like that was when it hit 240 over 220. I just remember kind of it was like white. I couldn't really see anything. My heart sucked up inside my chest. It just went like this. It just went, and then just a little bit later, it just puffed out again, and I thought I was dead at that moment when I felt that. Yeah, I feel like I'm lucky to be alive.
Yeah.
I had a couple doctors, nurses surrounding me, ready to air vac me to Edmonton. And I think the biggest thing is I lied, right? Like when I got there, the first question they asked you, are you on drugs? Or, have you been, partaking in any other activities? And I said no because I was scared because so many people know me. A lot of
Mm.
people at the hospital, they know me. So I panicked and I said no. And so whatever they gave me probably counteracted with the cocaine, and that's what boosted my heart rate.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm very lucky to be alive. I feel like somebody was watching over me,
Yeah.
um, and that I have a bigger purpose in this life. And yeah, it was a tough part of my life because I go to the schools, I go talk to kids, I got a lot of sponsors, a lot of people who look up to me. The kids call you a hero, and I don't like to be called a hero because I'm just doing my part, I'm doing my thing. But that's how the kids see you, that's how people see you. And I felt like I was living two different lives. And, this
Yeah.
one life, I'm put on a pedestal for all the wonderful things that I've done in the community, and then on the other side, I feel like I'm just a loser who's off just doing drugs, doing all these things that people don't even know about. So I came out to the
Yeah.
public before anybody could say anything. I did it myself. I shot a Facebook Live video, and then I just announced everything that I had going on. I had to, air my dirty laundry. And it was a hard time for me because a lot of my family, especially my grandfather, like he didn't know these things. And, these are
Mm.
things were very hurtful. Like,
Yeah.
and but there was a lot of people that supported me because a lot of people understood, like, hey, like people make mistakes, people go through things, and I always feel like our struggles don't define us, you know. And I mentioned to you that the thing is sometimes you do have to hit rock bottom to realize who you really are. And I felt that I had so much support and stuff around me after. But at the end of the day, like, you're the one that's got to push through, you're the one that's got to want it. And, there always is a light at the end of the tunnel. And I feel like sharing my story has helped a lot of people. There's a lot of people who have struggled with their mental health and, addictions. And,
Yeah.
this is one thing that has affected me dearly. And like I said, I didn't do it a lot, but I did a lot in a short period of time that affected me.
Right.
And, with Chicago Marathon and sharing my story and all these things leading into the addictions, I'm happy to announce that.
This episode is also brought to you by Cure Hydration. Cure is a plant-based hydrating electrolyte drink mix with no added sugar. It's a natural, delicious, and convenient way to keep you and your whole family hydrated without the artificial stuff. I'm excited to partner with Cure because they have high quality ingredients. So it's coconut water powder and pink Himalayan salt versus added sugar in order to make it easier to drink more water, which we all need. The flavor I am looking forward to trying the most is the lime and tropical punch, but there are a bunch more flavors available. They even have a variety pack that you can get to try them all. And of course, it's in a convenient little stick that you can take on the go. It's safe for your entire family. So whether it's just for daily hydration, for during your workout, for travel, which I'm getting ready to do, perhaps as you're listening to this, I always need to hydrate more when I travel, especially. It is a great way to do that. So don't be one of the 75% of Americans who are dehydrated and don't drink enough water and electrolytes, especially as a runner. Take care of yourself. So for Finish Lines and Milestones listeners, that's you, Cure is offering 20% off your first order. So stay hydrated, feel your best by visiting curehydration.com/AllieB, so that's ALLYB, and use promo code AllieB at checkout. So that's curehydration.com/AllieB and use code AllieB for 20% off your first order. Report back. Let me know what your favorite flavor is.
I'm happy to announce that I will be running the Boston Marathon for the first time in April. And I'm doing that all for the Boston Bulldogs Running Club. So my goal is to raise $10,000. I set mine at $15,000 because I always like to exceed. I like to do a little bit.
Yeah.
So the Boston Bulldogs Running Club is a co-ed nonprofit that offers anonymous and safe support for those who are suffering from addictions. And it doesn't just help the people that are suffering from addictions; it helps the families as well, because the families have gone through a lot of stuff as well. So, and my friend Dan, the bearded runner, he's called on Instagram, reached out to me and he told me to reach out to Megan and the organization, and they were happy to bring me on board. So
It's awesome.
Now I've ran for a lot of other causes, but now I'm running for something that has truly affected me.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's so much bigger now too. Not just running for somebody else, but running for myself and sharing this story. And maybe if I could just help change one person's life with my story, I've done my job.
Yeah. Is our Boston Bulldogs, do they help in the Boston community in particular? Or are they a nationwide organization or?
Yeah, they're from the Boston community, and
Okay.
it's so awesome to see. Like, I feel jealous every time I'm looking at the group chats or I'm seeing everything. They're doing their group runs and they're running some of the course, and so I'm actually going there at the end of the month to meet the team, some of
Oh,
the
that's so
members,
great.
and run with them. And then they're actually doing a viewing, the Boston Bulldogs story with some of the runners and their experiences. So I think that's going to be super cool to. I've read up on everybody's stories, my teammates' stories. I know, what everybody's kind of went through, or, their family, friends, and people that went through. But now I get to see these stories firsthand and just, to share them with them. So
yeah,
it's
that's
gonna
really
be a pretty
special.
special moment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for anybody listening to this who feels so inclined, I'll definitely link to your fundraising efforts in the show notes and when I share on social media as well. But I mean, I think I've found, especially in starting this podcast and talking to a lot of endurance athletes, like addiction is really prevalent in our community, especially of runners. I find that a lot of us have addictive personalities.
Oh yeah.
Fortunately now a lot of it is then, geared into running instead of otherwise. But I think I find a lot of inspiration in what you're doing, and that that you've shared all this. That had to be really tough. Like, to your point, you're like this children's hero who's done all these really amazing things. And then, you get in a bad way. And, in a time when if you're injured and not able to run, that's a really hard time. I can only imagine.
And the scary thing too is not just that. So you look at, like, I took myself out of the schools for a couple of years until
Mm,
like, I loved going to the schools. Like, they'd invite me for the Terry Fox runs every year. I'd go for sports days. I'd read to the kids, you know. And then I look at sponsors. Are people gonna ever sponsor me again? Are they gonna
right.
support me? And I actually got a lot of support from the community and people, you know, because I'm honest, right? I'm being
Yeah.
authentic. I'm being as real as I can be,
Yeah.
sharing my story, and that's all you can do is, if you're 100% honest with yourself and others, you know, most people will see through the bad things, right? Because that's
Mm-hmm.
the hard thing too is I share all the good times, and a lot of people never got to see the bad times. So
Sure.
I want people to see the bad times. I want people to know that it's not all sunshine and rainbows. And one of my favorite, I love Rocky. One of my favorite
Mm,
parts is a quote in Rocky Balboa when he said, "Life isn't all sunshine and rainbows. The world is a cruel, nasty place, and it'll beat you to your knees if you let it."
mm-hmm.
It's not about how hard you can hit; it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. That's
Yeah.
how winning is done,
Mm,
and that's something I live by.
mm-hmm.
I love that mantra. So
Yeah. Yeah. So after that point in your life, where you survived, that's
yeah.
really a very traumatic experience. And your mental health still has to be in a bad way. How did you get through that? Like, and how are you continue to work through that with like mental health?
So I started because I never had anxiety in my life, and I was getting
Mm,
anxiety, and so especially like when I'd just be sitting there by myself with my thoughts, my heart would start racing. I ended
yeah.
up getting I got on meds. I didn't think I needed the meds, but I did it just to try it.
Yeah.
And then I got to a point where I don't have them. I don't have panic attacks or anything anymore. I haven't had
That's
some in a
great.
couple years or whatever. I quit the meds cold turkey, and I just got back out there doing the things I love doing. And the big thing I found is I've always my passion has been running and helping others, and that's where I leave all my problems behind. Everything just seems
Mhm.
to disappear.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well, and
like I mentioned, sorry to cut you off.
yeah, no, you're
Chicago
good.
was one of those places that turned my life around because
Mm,
it showed me my purpose again. It showed
yeah.
me like the amount of support that I've got all over the world shows me why I do what I do and why I will continue to do what I do until the day I die.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there is no shame in the mental health game these days. I think people, thank God, we're in a community now that's more accepting of talking about these things because, I mean, anxiety, I personally have gone through a journey of figuring out, yeah, what kind of medication and what, with my therapist, with medication, with running, like what are the tools I need to have in place to make sure that I'm at my best. And it was something I think previously that people just would shy away from and not talk about at all. And so I'm just grateful now that we can at least talk about it more openly because people, I mean, gosh, a lot of people I know, if not like everybody I know, deals with these things, right? So, man, Curtis. So this year, maybe we talk about what you're tackling this year and like all of the recognition that you've gotten that's been so well deserved. Tell us about this calendar year because it is so crazy. When you and I were emailing back and forth, I'm just like, what? So
Yeah.
tell everybody kind of what's coming.
Okay. So as we discussed, I haven't even touched my big ass calendar. Like my sister and my friend are probably going to help me with this month because I've been away for 21 days. Like I
Yeah.
basically been away since the start of January, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
I'm starting off my running season with 3 marathons in 3 countries in 13 days.
Right.
So
Of course. Of course you are.
I'm running. I'm also running five out of 7 world marathon majors this year.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to be starting with Boston April 21st for the Boston Bulldogs Running Club. Then I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to get on a plane. I'm going to head to London, England, and run the London Marathon. And I'm doing that in support of Hospice UK. So
Okay.
I talked Hospice UK. We talked about my grandfather and how it's important for people to live out their lives how they want to live them out in their last days. My grandfather, you know, he wanted to live out his last days at home. He didn't want to die in the hospital. He
Mm,
wanted to be surrounded by his family and friends. So he got to live out that life. We had the nurses come into the home and help him. So, that's something that people, I think, deserve in their life. And so that's one
Yeah.
of the reasons why I accepted to run there as well. And then I will be leaving from there. I'll be flying to Toronto. I'll be running the Toronto Marathon. I'll be representing them as an ambassador. And that's on May 4th. So literally Boston, April 21st, London, April 27th, Toronto, May 4th.
Right.
And then May 4th is a special day. That's the anniversary when I started my run across Canada. So that'll be cool significance doing
that's
that
really
in Toronto.
cool.
And then 2 weeks after that, I'll be doing the Woodies Marathon in Red Deer. And
So
then
wait, what? You're still going 2 weeks after that?
I'm at, and then a week after that, I'm going to do the Calgary Marathon. And then I
Okay.
don't really have anything scheduled for, well, I had a friend ask me if I would run the Missoula Marathon. She said it's pretty awesome. So I might register in that in June. Why not?
Seems
And
like
then
you probably will. Yep.
July, I don't have anything going on. And then August, I'll be running the Edmonton Marathon again.
Okay.
And then I will be doing the Sydney Marathon. So that's going to be special. So
Yeah.
Sydney is going to be, it's going to be a huge celebration because it's their first time ever being a world marathon major. So
cool.
it's going to be an amazing time there. I've never been to Australia. Australia is on my bucket list.
Yep.
And then after that, I'll come home. So where are we at? We're in September now.
Yep.
I'm planning on running the Queen City Marathon in Regina again. And then
Okay.
we're talking about, Sarah and Jesse. I'm going to try and sneak in the Running Fest, the Running Man Festival. I'm going
there
to
you
try and get
go.
that. That's a couple days later. And then into October, this is where it gets crazy. So
No, it's already crazy. Keep going.
yeah, it gets crazier. So, we talk about my addictions and, running and struggling with drugs. So during this time frame, we didn't discuss it, but I attempted my first ever 100-miler. And of course, this was my first ever DNF in my life. So we talked about the DNFs in high heels. I've never actually DNF'd when wearing running shoes until this point. This was back when I was during my drug addictions and stuff. I met with some friends and I said I was just going to go out for supper at Boston Pizza. Ended up turning into drinks, partying. I did a bunch of cocaine, didn't sleep, showed up to the start of a 100-miler, drugs in my system, drunk. I kind of just put my hood over my head. I didn't want people to see me because I was obviously embarrassed. I ran for 7 hours. My heart rate I was in zone 5, 190 beats per hour for 7 hours. And I DNF'd myself. And then I attempted to do this race again the next year. Same thing. I got onto the drugs because I just knew my Achilles was going on me at this point. And so I was like, I got to do something to try and help me get through this. So I got into the drugs. I went to the hospital in Cold Lake, told them that I ended up making a mistake. So I was on IV. I stayed overnight, had an IV. The next day I got out of the hospital bed. I pulled the IV out. I was like, I got to go. I got to register for this race. I got to make it to registration. So St. Paul's an hour and a half away. I literally had like an hour and 45 minutes to get there to pick up my race package and everything. So I did it again after. This time I managed 63 kilometers and I DNF'd myself again. So October this year, I'm going to conquer my demons and I'm going to finish this 100-miler. I'm going to finish this 100-miler. And then 8 days later, I'm going for the record in Chicago.
Yeah.
In high heels for Run DV out of town. And then after that, I am going to be doing the Marine Corps Marathon. It's going to be the 50th anniversary.
I want to go.
Yeah. So do it. We can meet up there.
Oh my God. I just got so excited. Sorry. I was like, me.
So,
my
buddy Eddie Nolan, he passed away this last year from cancer. He had throat cancer. I know, it sucks. And he had honored Terry Fox every year. So he was one of those people too. He struggled through his life and he saw Terry Fox running across the Cartier Bridge. And he did the Terry Fox run every year for every year that has been going on. And every April 12th, he honored Terry by running a marathon carrying Terry Fox's flag.
Oh, that's cool.
And around Quebec. And he gave me a shirt from the Marine Corps Marathon. It's from 1993. And I'm going to wear that shirt and honor him in the 50th anniversary. And then from there, a week later, I've got the New York Marathon.
Go.
And
Okay.
that will be the end of my season unless I decide I might treat myself to a trip to Hawaii and maybe finish off the year with the Honolulu Marathon and then just call her a year.
Or just
I
like
don't
go to
know.
Hawaii and just lay down, sleep.
Yeah.
No, that's not your style. Wow, Curtis. Okay. So when I asked you to tell us about this year, I had written down the ones that you told me about, which is funny because now it's like, oh, then there's like a ton more. How I'm envious of your year too, because what incredible experiences. So each of these, do you have a cause you're running for? Are there some of them where you're just simply running?
So New York will be the one that I'm just strictly running. Well, I guess out of the world majors, New York's the one that I'm just strictly running.
Running.
So yeah. So I mentioned Boston is for the Boston Bulldogs Running Club
Yep.
for addictions. Then London is for Hospice UK. Sydney, Australia is for MS UK, and that one's
cool.
cause near and dear to my heart. My sister was diagnosed with MS 7 years ago, so my sister has been a rock, like the rock in my life. And my sister was one of the reasons that I'm probably still here today. When I was struggling with depression and my mental health, my sister was literally the person that helped carry me out of that. And to be able to run for her and to honor her in Sydney at their first time being a world marathon major is going to be an incredible experience. And then for Chicago is for run domestic violence out of town.
Again,
And
yep.
New York will just be for me. And I might get crazy. Like I might end up, I'm not sure if you saw that girl, Justine, like that could be me in New York.
Okay. I didn't see that girl, Justine. Tell me, what are you talking about?
She was the girl that she went famous on TikTok. She's like, I'm drunk. She was at every station. She was a girl. She was having drinks and partying. She had a good time. Oh, that might be me in New York ending my year.
That's funny.
Obviously. So, I've talked, speaking about it, I've committed myself to my Boston team. I haven't drank alcohol since December 14th when I found out that I was going to be part of the team. That's something that I'm committed to doing up until Boston, just to be a good teammate and to support my team, because I know there's a lot of people that suffered, right?
Yeah.
So that's something that I've committed up until then. I'm going to honor that. So
Good
yeah,
for you.
I mean, it's going to be a fun year. And like I've met a lot of people in the community, and now I've met you and shared my story with so many people, and now I get to meet some of these people at
Right.
some of these events or multiple events. We're going to meet up and we're going to share stories. We're going to go for drinks and go for dinner. And I love, like, I could talk for days. I could talk your ear off for days. But one thing I do love hearing is I love hearing other people's stories. I don't like to compare, because that's one thing people do. It's like, oh, well, you've done so many marathons. It's like, yes, I understand that, but that's my story. That's not your
Yeah.
story. Tell me your story. Tell me how you got into it. I love hearing why people got into it. And, I shared a story recently. There is a struggle with a lot of runners coming forward, or a lot of people wanting to become marathoners, because I do feel like a lot of people are being pushed out from others due to slower times and stuff. I'm sure you saw that. And it's becoming in our community. Oh, well, you're not a marathoner because you don't run fast enough. That's a walking speed. But I don't give a shit what those people say. Like, if you finish a marathon, you finish a marathon. You're a marathoner.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you have to crawl across that finish line, you're a marathoner. And again, that's just some people in the community. That does not define our community. And I've mentioned that a couple times. I had a lady trash talk me she's like, oh, I hope you have fun walking in your, I hope you have fun walking your high heels. And it's like, well, listen, lady, I could be super rude. Like, I researched you. I've checked up your marathon times. I've destroyed your PB, but that's not what it's about. Like, that's not why, you know what I mean? Like, if you wanted to sit there and nitpick at everybody, it's like, there's always somebody going to be faster out there. There's always going to be somebody better, but that's not why you're doing it. It's just you against you, right? It's you against you. And if you're crushing your goals and you keep bettering yourself, that's all that matters.
Right.
And
yes.
Yeah.
Amen.
So that's how I see it anyways.
Yeah. I'm like, say it again. I am with you, lady. Yeah. And you've run a sub 3-hour marathon. Let's just throw that out there too.
My PB is a 2:56, but that was also
no big
when
deal.
I was younger and in better shape. I was also 50 pounds lighter. So
yeah.
but
well,
yeah,
still pretty cool. to have that under your belt. So, and your first marathon you ever run, you got a sub 4, which is pretty cool too. So,
Yeah.
do you, let's nerd out a little bit about running in particular. Do you have, like, what do you eat when you run? Like, do you use a coach? Like, are you just kind of at this point, I guess you're running a lot for charity, not as focused on time? Tell us a little bit about that.
So this is one thing that'll probably blow people's minds, and it's not to be cocky. I never really trained. Like if you saw some of my videos, I know you did some research, but some of the stuff I posted, I showed my mileage last year. If you saw, like I maybe ran a 5 or 10K prior to doing Chicago in high heels. I didn't do any training, and it was just because I was going through some injuries with my other left Achilles, and I didn't want to overtrain or hurt myself or do any of these things. But so I took from my first marathon when I was 15 to the 310 marathons I've ran. Like I mentioned before, I know what it takes to finish a marathon. I did train much during all that. So like when I went from the first marathon to the 34 marathons in 34 days, I was very athletic. I played hockey, soccer, basketball, volleyball, track and field, cross country. I was always doing a sport every day. So I was physically fit. I just did the 34 marathons in 34 days. Just did it, and then from that going to college and running and everything else. So it's the same thing. I just went out and did it. And that's why I've suffered the injuries I've had, because I didn't take it seriously. I took it seriously, but in the sense of training.
Yeah.
Now, being part of the Boston Bulldogs running club is the first time that I've actually taken training seriously. I'm on a program, I have a coach, I'm sticking to this schedule. Obviously, these last week and a half, I've kind of fumbled. I've been mentally and physically drained with the work. Obviously, you saw what I've been doing and
Yeah.
working in the cold weather. Running 24 kilometers or like 14 miles on a treadmill is very
Dude,
draining and
sucks. Yeah. Been
painful.
Probably doing that tomorrow,
And I
actually.
just, yeah, and I just, so as far as that goes, and then for eating, I think this is the hardest part. When I was running 50 kilometers a day every day, I was crushing close to 10,000 calories a day. I was eating a couple large pizzas, double Big Macs, double
Yeah.
Baconators. I was eating whatever I wanted because I could run it off.
Yeah.
Right now, like that's the one thing that I've worked on a lot. Like I drink a lot less pop or soda, you guys call it.
Pop
Um,
too. Depends on the part of the country.
I guess where you're at, yeah. And then
Yeah.
like my goodies and stuff. And then I mean I still crush my Big Macs and Baconators. It's something I love. But
Mm.
yeah, as far as nutrition, like I've got a lot better. I've learned to train myself using gels, because normally what I would eat was I'd pack little snacks like gummy bears or gummy worms or like
It works
something
too.
sugary candies and
Yeah.
stuff to help me throughout my runs and that. So as far as nutrition and stuff goes, it's kind of it was out the window for a long time, but now I'm focusing, and especially I don't have my gallbladder either. So during the time where I was suffering from addictions, I ended up with an emergency gallbladder surgery.
Ooh.
So I had to watch what I eat as well, because basically everything will run right through me, and then I don't want to have that struggles on the course.
No, you don't. Yeah. Wow. Geez, that is a whole nother ball game too.
Yeah.
Wild. Oh gosh. Wow. Curtis,
Yeah.
I could talk to you all day long. I got to figure out how to I want to meet you in person at some point, hopefully Marine
Yep.
Corps. I have family that lives in Alexandria. So
Okay.
I've done the Marine Corps once. I always forget what year that was, a while ago, my dad. And I really want to go back for the 50th. I think it'd be so much fun.
It's going to be a huge celebration.
Yeah. I
It's
have a
going to be
couple of
crazy.
friends who have both been on this podcast that are going, and I got a couple guests that live in that area. And I'm like, okay, I want to go. It's the weekend before, is it the week? I'm looking at my big ass calendar. It's the weekend before New York, and it's 2 weekends before the Indianapolis Monumental Marathon. So that's our big marathon here where I live. So it's definitely doable for me. So anyway, but I have young kids.
It's 2 weekends before Indianapolis?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if it's 2 weeks
so you
before.
you could just go from New York, squeeze in
New York is.
Indianapolis.
That's what I was going to
weekend
ask
before.
you.
Yeah,
Indianapolis is after New York?
Yeah, it's the weekend after. It's on Saturday the 8th. So, just squeeze it in there. It's fine.
Might as well add another one. We'll do that, and then I might as well just head straight to Hawaii from there.
Jeez. I mean,
No, I'm
yeah,
kidding. I'd still have a month left. I'd go home.
Yeah, right. I know. I'm like, you could do Philadelphia. You could do St. Jude in December. There's still plenty of options.
When's Philly?
Philly is the 23rd of November. It's like usually right
Ooh,
before Thanksgiving here in the US. That's an excellent race. And you mentioned Rocky earlier. So just saying, you got to go do
Rocky's
that one
my
at some
jam.
point. Yeah. So many great experience for you to have. I mean, you could just come run in every state here in the United States. That's a big thing. So I could see you doing
So
that.
I actually probably eventually will be running
Mm.
across the US. It was
Okay.
something that I had planned. I actually met with a lady when I was doing my run across Washington, Oregon, and California. I was at a Run with Kevin Hart event in Portland, Oregon,
Oh, that's
and I
cool.
met with her, and she works with like military veterans and people that have lost limbs or um, and she wanted me to run for the military veterans in the U.S. because I always like to run for a cause. Sometimes you know what I mean. Like I like to run for a
Hmm.
cause that if I'm in that country, I want to try and do something for you guys that's going to benefit you guys, make people
Right.
more willing to donate as well. And so we had talked about this back in the day, and I was going to run across the U.S. and then I tore my Achilles, and everything kind of happened. Another one I was going to run across Australia too because I think it would take me. I can't remember how long it would take me, but it was a project that I was going to do.
Yeah. I don't know. The animals there is what would scare me
I
about
know
that
that's what I was
experience.
worried about, like
Yeah.
getting bit by a crocodile or
Or something like
kangaroo
that.
coming across the road and punching me in the head.
Right. That's stuff's
Spiders,
scary. Yeah, the spiders in
snakes.
particular. Oh,
Oh
snake. I
yeah,
forgot about the snakes. Yeah.
yeah.
Nope. That's a no for me. I really want to I want to run Sydney at some point though. My oldest daughter's name is Sydney, and she kind of gets her name from Sydney, Australia. Both my husband and I have been there, and it's just a place that we love, and hopefully get a chance to take her there at some point. But I got to run that marathon. Ugh,
I
I'm
heard
jealous.
it's got some hills too.
It is hilly, I've heard, yes,
Yeah.
which I'm like, oh well, whatever. Okay, what else was I gonna ask you about? I gotta make sure I didn't miss anything. I could talk to you forever though. So what do you think, like, in terms of how people can best support you? I mean, obviously donating to whatever cause for certain races, but I'm surprised, frankly, Curtis, that you don't have like all these branded sponsors, like people like that supporting you. And I mean, because you deserve that additional support. Um, so how can people help you if anybody's listening that has connections that could support you?
Yeah, I mean, I've reached out to a couple companies. Obviously, I haven't heard back, and like I guess it stems back to like you talking about like where we grew up. Like we didn't have the social media like we did. I'm sure like if I had social media was like it was then, I probably would have blew up
Right.
bigger then. Like there's still
Yeah.
some people they're like like people comment, and that's not why I do it, but it's like people are like, how is this guy not more famous, or like
That's
how
what
do
I
not
was.
more
Yeah.
people know about him? And it's like then people comment, they're like, well, he did this back in 2012, and it makes sense. Some of those people weren't even
Yeah.
born, right? Like some of
Right.
these kids weren't born. Some of these runners were like
It's
5 years
kids.
old, 7 years old, just kids, right? So
Yeah.
I look at it that way, and then I guess too is like like yeah, maybe I don't have a big enough following for some of these companies to seem to
Right.
maybe jump on board, which is fine. I'm not worried about that. But
Right.
yeah, I just if people want to follow me on my socials, my my Instagram, Facebook, it's all C Hargrove 15. I share my stories, good and bad,
Mm-hmm.
about my adventures, and of course, this year is going to be crazy. It's going to be a crazy journey, especially the start of the race season. Like I said, the 3 marathons in 13 days in 3 countries that it's
Dude.
really going to kick me off, and I think the
Mm-hmm.
biggest part of my I guess my story this year is hopefully, well, I'm not even saying hopefully, I'm gonna crush that 100 miler, the first
Mm.
thing that ever defeated me, and then I'm gonna go 8 days later and I'm gonna break the world record in high heels in
Hell yeah.
Chicago.
So wait, what race is the 100 miler again?
It's the
Did you
Iron
say?
Horse 100 Ultra.
Iron
It's in
Horse
St. Paul, Alberta. It's about an hour and a half away from here. Yeah.
from you. Okay. Okay. Yeah. 100 miles. Yeah. My last two guests, both 100 mile. Well, one, an attempt that he's getting redemption for, and then another 100 miler. I mean, people, yeah. For me, I'm just a lowly marathoner. I mean, I'm joking because it's still you're a marathoner and it's all relative,
Yeah.
but like the more people I meet, just the more insane and just incredible people are. I can't wrap my head around it. It's just so cool. Well, I'm so excited to continue to support you, Curtis, and hopefully get a chance to meet you in person. And yeah, I could see like this time next year. I just can't even imagine where you're going to go and like what things you're going to do. You mentioned you were born in Germany. Have you done a lot of other travel outside of US and Canada?
Not too much. I mean, I've been to England and like Wales and stuff. Like
Okay.
my sister's ex was from Wales and that area, so I went out there. That was actually I went out to Wales prior to running across Canada. That was pretty cool. I spent
Okay.
like 3 weeks there. It was a good time. Yeah, just mainly been inside the U.S. I haven't gone like to too many different countries and stuff. So
Wow.
yeah, like I said, it's gonna be an amazing year. I'm gonna meet so many people,
Mm.
hear
Mm-hmm.
amazing stories. Gonna try and share more people's stories, and yeah, just continue to do what I love doing. I mentioned that, and hopefully, knock on wood, that I have a great year. One of my goals this year, I actually did say this is the Curtis Hargrove Redemption Tour. 2025 is my redemption tour. So, and one of my goals is, I'm hoping to BQ in Boston. Like I got to be realistic. I don't know if that's going to happen yet, but
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still like I feel by the end of the year I can get that BQ and I'll
Yeah.
be there. And then, carrying into next year, I'm hoping that I can finish my, you know, my world marathon
Right.
6-star journey. Hope to get to Tokyo and Berlin and finish
Yep.
that off. So if it does happen, if you get Tokyo, I'd be finishing off in Berlin, in
Yeah.
Germany.
And wait, it's 7 stars now,
Yeah,
right? Do they have a
yeah.
different
Well,
medal now?
they still
They still have
do
the
the
6
six
star.
star. Yeah, but they have
Okay.
different things where you're gonna be able to put different ones on different things if you want. And
Okay.
then I think they're not gonna change it until they have 9, which is Cape Town's coming on there, and then you know Shanghai. Like, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
good chances that those will probably get pushed through, and then we're gonna have the 9 World Marathon Majors, and I know the rest will be history. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was really trying to shoot for 7 World Marathon Majors in the year.
Mm.
I think when I reached out to Tokyo, because I didn't have a drawing, I reached out to them, like reached out to contacts to try and get me in there. I reached out to some bigger sponsors. I think what they were thinking is that I was going to run in high heels, because they did get back to me and they said
Oh.
that they're very strict in Tokyo, with your race attire and everything else, and they don't
Mm.
want you hurting yourself. But I had mentioned that I was going to do it in runners, so hopefully I get into Tokyo next year,
Yeah.
and then obviously Berlin as well. And then
Yeah.
I don't know, like who knows? Maybe I do all 7 next year.
Ooh. Who knows? Like
I don't
I
even
mean,
know. I got to get
sky's
through
the
this
limit.
year first.
Right. Okay. Yep. First things first. Okay. So, end of the podcast questions. I love that you love Eye of the Tiger. So the first question is your mantra and or song. I
Yeah,
just gave a spoiler.
definitely. I mean, yeah, Eye of the Tiger, and look at. I'll
Oh.
show you my little iPod Shuffle. I've had this for over a decade.
Yeah, I've heard you talk
So
about that.
yeah, so
It's so cute.
Morgan and Noel used to fill this with songs, just random songs. So like, it's funny. A girl asked me what I need to know what he's listening to right now. Like when they took that video of the TikTok of me walking in the high heels, and I
Oh,
said what people probably think I'm listening, or what people think I'm listening to is like Motley Crue, Kickstart My Heart. What I'm really listening to is T Swift. So because there's random songs. I got like I go from hardcore rock to Backstreet Boys to country to whatever on
mm,
this. But yeah, Eye of the Tiger is huge for me, and
mm,
it was pretty cool. So on my homecoming, on my run across Canada, I shared a photo with you with my beard
yeah,
looking like Forrest
yeah,
Gump.
you do.
And when I ran into the energy center, there was about 1,600 people waiting for me, and they had Eye of the Tiger blaring for me running into the energy center, which is probably
Yes.
one of the coolest moments of my life. So they live streamed me coming to the energy center. So what they did is when I came into Coal Lake, there's a huge hill, and we have sailboats saying "Welcome to Coal Lake." So at the top of the hill, there was a bunch of sponsors, so the diamond sponsors or whatever, the mayor. My friend
That's so
Amanda, she's
cool.
a rodeo queen. She was on her horse. We had the
Oh my
veterans
god.
on their motorcycles, the firefighters in the fire truck. We had all the media. Riders Connection donated side by sides so that all the news companies could ride on the side by sides and film me running in. And then there was a van in front of me with an iPad live streaming me to the whole community. The city shut
That's
down the
cool.
streets, people lined the streets, and then yeah, like I said, I ran into the energy center to Eye of the Tiger. Is probably one of the coolest moments of my life. But yeah, like this thing's been with me for over a decade. I love this thing.
That's so funny.
I had to raw dog it in camp. I forgot my headphones in camp, so
Ooh,
running that 14 miles on the treadmill was rough.
you
But
did it with no headphones on the treadmill.
yeah, but I turned on the TV
Okay,
and
thank God.
School of Rock happened to be on, so I was listening to Jack
There you
Black
go.
sing.
Yeah, that's
I heard the
great.
concert part of that, so there's a little bit of singing going on,
Yeah,
some
thank
music.
goodness. Oh my gosh, I just picture being alone on the treadmill with my own thoughts would be
It's
brutal.
terrible.
Yeah. Which brings us to kind of the next part of that question too, like mantras. I think just given all the things you've done, you have to, your mindset and your mind is really powerful. So what are some of the things you tell yourself?
I've mentioned it on this podcast a couple times, like the pain I go through is nothing compared to what people go through every
Mm,
day. So like, the
mm,
women and children, or, the kids with cancer, the people with cancer, anybody that I'm raising money for. And then I look at it as like, I'm a fully able-bodied person, yeah, I tore my Achilles. I even felt bad complaining about that because you know what, my Achilles, I've healed. I've ran marathons since I've torn my Achilles. There's some
yeah.
people that, just they injure themselves, or they have things going on, they lose limbs. There's people that can't run or can't do these things, and that's one thing I'm very thankful for. I'm thankful for the body that I've been given, and I'm using that body to help others and do the things that I want to do in the community.
Mm,
And that's just what I look at is I'm so thankful, and of course I've got a big following, a big community of supporters, and they're the real reason why I'm out here doing the things I do. They're the ones that should be called heroes. The supporters, the people donating money, the people donating their time and sharing the word. Those are the ones that are heroes. The people that I'm running for are the heroes, and that's what I use. And then of course I have pretty thick skin. I mean, I still like I still share the stories of people doing it because that's the stuff that fuels my fire. Like I had
right.
someone tell me, oh, the 2025 Chicago Marathon would like to welcome Curtis Hargrove, double amputee, just because of my high heel stuff and
Right.
like just stupid stuff.
Yeah.
Or this guy's never gonna, like this woman said, oh, he's never gonna run a marathon in his life ever again. He's stupid. Like those are the things. I had this guy, Jeremy. No one cares about your running injuries or your running career. Those are the things that I love. I love hearing those things. It
Yeah.
actually fuels my fire. Those are the things I build off of. I'm like, yeah, I'll show you.
Yeah.
I'll show you this year. You'll see.
God, these,
And I just build off of everything like that. And the negative energy turns into positive energy. And then, of
mm,
course, I love being out on the road or out on the course with just me and my thoughts and my music, thinking about why I'm doing this.
your iPod shuffle. Do you have to wear old school headphones, don't you?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
Just little,
The wired. Yeah, you do. That's
yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
Um, so my next question is always like next finish line or milestone. Like clearly we've covered that. So I'm changing this question, and I would like to talk about your Guitar Hero skills.
Yeah. So I'm kind of a nerd. So like in between like my sports and stuff growing up, I would something to calm me and relax me. I play Guitar Hero, and I got really good at it, and I actually won $6,000 playing Guitar Hero. It was something when you take the time to learn it, and they say it takes you about 1,600 hours to be a professional at something, and I've got well over that, I believe. And yeah, so my uncle saw some things and saw some tournaments in the newspaper. I went and competed, and I won some tournaments. And I still kind of play to this day. It's something that I do just when I'm relaxing. It's really good for hand-eye
Gosh.
coordination, and like I said, it's just peaceful. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's kind of a nerdy side about me.
that's
I
so
was a
funny.
gamer, and then too, when I tore my Achilles, to help me with my struggles with mental health and stuff, and of course through my addiction phase, a lot of people in the gaming community, there's a lot of people that struggle as well mentally, and I find like that's their out, like that, like some
Mm,
people obviously with running and stuff, that's a lot of people's way to deal
yeah.
with their mental health. A lot of people play gaming to deal with that, and that's something I did when I tore my Achilles. I used to stream on Twitch, play Guitar Hero for people. They'd request songs. I'd play Halo, stuff like that.
Oh,
It's
that's
just something that
wild.
I did to keep myself busy, to keep myself sane, because I couldn't do the things that I wanted to do.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's kind of my nerdy side.
that's so funny. There's a whole nother subculture of like
Yeah,
Guitar Hero tournaments. I didn't even know. I mean, of course I should know like that exists. I've played. I'm not as good. My sister's pretty good. And we also had Rock Band. So then we could
yeah,
all
Rock
like
Band was
play. Yeah.
huge.
But I'm not very good. But that's so fun. What's your favorite Guitar Hero song to play?
Well, I mean, I love playing Dragon Force Through Fire and Flames on Expert. There's a song like opera. It's actually
It's
it's a
crazy.
cool one. It's Through Fire and Flames. It's Operation Ground and Pound remastered. It's like Through Fire and Flames and Operation Ground and Pound, two Dragon Force songs mixed together. It's pretty awesome. And then yeah, I don't know. I love playing everything. Like I was actually gonna do. Somebody challenged me to. I was gonna do this. I was gonna take video filming me playing Guitar Hero while running on the treadmill,
Oh God.
seeing how well I could do. That would be a tough challenge.
That would be
So I
pretty
was gonna,
hard.
like do a marathon while beating all the Guitar Heroes, like Guitar Hero 1, 2, and 3. And if I fail, I have to start over.
Okay. Wow.
So
That would be
those are some
interesting.
things
Just
that
make sure
I
you
thought
wear
about
that
doing in
safety
the future.
key, okay? Wear the safety key, so if you fall off, God, the treadmill stops. Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
All right. Well, your invitation to come to Indy stands if you decide you want to do that. I'll hook you up. We'll get you a
Okay.
hotel room. We'll get you an entry to the race, like whatever you need. You come. You're invited.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I actually landed there briefly before I flew to Chicago.
You did.
Yeah, I had a little layover there on my way to Chicago.
What a wild place to have a layover going to
I know,
Chicago
right?
from where you are. Usually you
Yeah.
can get right into Chicago. You had to
I
come to
know.
us.
So this is something I'll explain to you. Sorry, I know I can keep talking for days. So
No, this is good.
prior to Chicago, I was working, and 3 days before my flight got pushed and canceled to another date, a flight that I had booked for 6 months, and I was gonna have me flying in on Saturday, and I called the company. I'm like, listen, like this can't happen. I said, I won't be able to pick up my race package. I'm not going to be able to race Chicago. Nobody's allowed to pick up my package for me. So I told work, I'm like, listen, I have to figure this out. So it was like 6 in the morning and I saw this email. So I canceled my flights. Well, I didn't. Yeah, I like they rescheduled my flights. I canceled them. Like I want my money back. They gave me credits, which is fine. I used them, but I had to book flights through WestJet, and I found flights for it was last minute. It was all right. It was $1,200 Canadian. So probably like 700 or 800 US.
Yeah, that's
last minute, just so I could get there I didn't get there till the Friday at like midnight. And then I went and picked up my race package and everything. And I lost like 5 days in Chicago. So yeah, so on my flight there, that was where my connecting flight was, Indianapolis.
That's so funny. Our airport is phenomenal. It's, small but mighty. Like we are, like I can go from my house to like my gate in like an hour. It's crazy how easy they are.
That must be nice. I'm jealous. I have to drive 3.5 hours to Edmonton just to get on a plane. It sucks.
Okay. Yeah, that does suck. Wow.
And then my flight home really sucked. I had, I did that, and then I had to leave on the Monday. I flew from Chicago to Detroit, and I had a 15-hour layover in Detroit because that was the cheapest flight I could get. I was gonna go to the Pink concert. I was like, you know what should I do? Maybe I'll just go to Little Caesars Arena and I'll go to the Pink concert. But by the time it landed and I got myself checked in, I ended up staying at the Hilton at the airport, inside the airport.
Yeah.
And I just slept there, and then I flew home and I went straight back to work.
God.
Yeah, so my whole journey actually, Chicago, was mayhem after the marathon.
Well, I just hope this year, after all the travels you have, you don't have a ton of stories like that. Undoubtedly something will happen, but hopefully nothing too crazy.
Pretty good chance.
Yeah. Curtis, thank you so much for doing this. This has been a blast. I can't wait to cheer you on all year and beyond. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me, Allie. I like I said, I truly appreciate you reaching out to me. I'm thankful for people like you that help get the story out there, and I will cheer you on now too as well. Now that we know each other, you can keep me posted with all your goals and all your stuff that you're doing, and I'll spread the word. I'll share your podcast, and I had a great time, and it's great sharing stories, and hopefully, I know we did a lot of talking about me, but hopefully we can talk about you and your family in the future, and discuss things that you got going on. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody who has listened, and happy running. If you enjoyed this Sandy Boy Productions podcast, please go share, rate, review. Thanks again to Pure Fuel and Cure for supporting this podcast. And I can't wait to tell you about Las Vegas. Stay tuned.